You know, anybody that's been working on cars very long, well, like Daniel was talking about, he's already got people asking him, you know, what's wrong with my car, if I want it to work right, all this kind of stuff. But we get phone calls and emails that come from people that hope we either run across their problem before, or we might be able to point them in the right direction. That's what Identifix and IETN are about. You know, you're hoping you can get connected to somebody that's seen the problem you're having, so they can say, oh yeah, you know, go here, look behind the glove box, tighten that screw, and do this and this, and here's the shortcut and everything like that. Well, there's guys out there that want to be indispensable and refuse to share their knowledge, but they're not doing themselves any favors. It's always good to share whatever knowledge you have, because you're not going to hurt yourself by sharing your knowledge, you know what I mean? If somebody decides they're going to get smarter, they're going to get smarter without your help. But I found out the more knowledge I share, the smarter I get. It always has been that way. Technical service bulletins are all about that. If you're smart, you'll be looking at technical service bulletins to see what this, you know, if anything comes up, then you know, that stuff is sorted out too by the IATN and your particularly your Identifix and all. Some of the repair work is fairly simple though. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to replace spark plugs, brake shoes, belts. Anybody had any trouble with that? Brake shoes, spark plug, belts around here? But we got a F-250 here that came in with an ABS light concern that I was handed the ticket on. And the line technician that first worked on it before they handed it to me specializes in engines, manual transmissions, and differentials. And he noticed the ABS lamp, inoperative speedometer, and he put some components in the rear end to include the differential speed sensor, trying to fix it. And so the ABS lamp had been illuminated when he first drew the ticket. When he was done, the ABS problem was still there. And so I was, you know, just basically over helping out when I was off, you know, during the Christmas break and all. But there was no obvious TSBs related to it, but I had seen a problem like it before. And so we've got the four-wheel anti-lock brake module. Listen, you'll get answers as I go here. And it's mounted on the hydraulic control unit right behind and below the driver's side headlamp on that particular truck. It receives the differential speed signal from the rear axle. The ABS module filters and processes that signal and routes it to the other modules, some of which depend on the central junction box to make the connection. Okay, so basically you're looking at this module, you're looking at the, coming from the rear end, you got a wheel like this. Like this actually came out of a rear end. You got a wheel like this in the rear end, and it's got a little sensor back there. And that sensor, whenever that sensor puts out its little signal, and it's got like 1100 ohms or something like that, I think. But anyway, it goes to the ABS unit, that signal does, over twisted wires, just a 2-wire connection. And then that thing sends it, what else needs to know the vehicle speed besides the ABS module? What's it sending it out to? Give me at least one other box that needs to know vehicle speed.
Transfer case?
Well, not on this one. Let's say it's a 2-wheel drive. What about the PCM? Doesn't it need to know what the vehicle speed is so it knows when to shift gears for the transmission? What about the instrument cluster? What about the cruise control? Needed for a bunch of things. ABS obviously needs it. So it's going to send it out to all of these other ones. It's going to filter it. It's going to send a signal out. Now, I will tell you this. The instrument cluster cannot recognize this signal on this particular truck apart from it being filtered and reprocessed and sent out of this box here to the IC. All right. So basically, and there's also, you know, your GEM module, your overhead console, there's a bunch of other stuff. Connecting the worldwide diagnostic system to the DCL, I worked my way through, that's like the IDS that we got in here. I worked my way through this opening program to the point where he does a network test, and I found out the ABS was not communicating over the ISO bus. This sounds to me like I found my problem. The ABS module is not talking. Now, what are the possibilities? If you've got a box that ain't talking and the wires all the way to the box are good, give me a possibility.
Bad ground?
It's a good answer. What else? What if it's not powered up?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a problem?
Yeah.
What if it's bad? What if something's happened? You know, what if somebody accidentally lit off their deer rifle while they were leaning against a grill and a bullet went through it, you know? I have seen,
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I have known of of engine controllers that were, accidentally shot by somebody that got in their car with a pistol lit off. They shot their engine controller and killed the car, Okay. Brian, you don't have to confess, okay? All right, so. All right. All right, so I open up the ABS schematic and the pinout charts. You know what the pinout chart is. The schematic is telling you how it's wired. The pinout charts is when you can see the connector and tell which pin is which. And I found ABS connector pin 14 supplies power to the module, and the power coming through fuse 24 in the interior fuse panel. And I began my diagnosis there. Fuse 24 was fine, but when I accessed the ABS module connector, it was necessary to remove two 6mm screws and pull the fender liner down, because that's where I just had to go. Turn on the ignition switch, there was no power there. The module would be sound asleep without power, and I discovered the problem, but what was the reason for it? The harness circuit 533 to pin 14 needed some 12-volt fire, and I needed to find out where it was. So I followed the schematic from the ABS connector pin 14 back to the power source, found circuit 533, traveled through the bulkhead connector C1050, which is the center member of a trio of big square connectors located between the master cylinder and the fender, below and behind the battery junction box. You'll see it if you look by the master cylinder down there. The battery junction box would have to be removed, and we did that. It's a good idea to set up a high impedance or low impedance test lamp in plain sight, so it'll continuously monitor the circuit. So basically, I'm going to set up a test light so that I'm going to be able to tell if that module connector gets power during all of my moving things around. I got this test light connect up there, and I move around. If I'm moving stuff around, I see that test light light up, I know that I found a problem. Too many times we'll move it around, it'll come on and stay on. We know we didn't fix it, except just temporarily, and we got to worry about the next time it's going to quit and the next time it's going to come back. So be careful about that. So I found the C1050, the connector number 1050 in the pinout chart, located the male pin number 30 on the ABS side of the module harness. Module side of the harness with my test light monitoring pin 14. I touch power. See, basically, let me show you this. Here's my ABS module right here, and basically here, and then there's connectors in between. Let's say I'm just going to draw one connector in between there. And so basically, I had this connector here disconnected from the module, so I could monitor these pins. All these little pins in here. Okay, and this was actually going here, and this was coming from there. All right, and so basically I went with my test light right here. I had it connected to that, had it connected to ground, and when I fed power in right here, this lit up. What I'm doing is I'm taking parts of the circuit and isolating them. I know I don't have a problem between here and here now, and I can forget about rat damage or anything else between that and that, right? Now I'm looking back this way. That's where we're headed. I blew the picture up of all the connectors and looked for pins that were spread or pushed back or whatever. And there was a splice there. Now I'm not going to go fool with a splice unless there's no other way to do it. The junction box connector in question, there was a junction box connector coming off of this junction box. This junction box connector was basically one of these big ones. That's what I'm talking about. It's basically coming out of this, going through the bulkhead connector down to the module, which is outside the truck. But this is where the origination of that power was. All right. So I plugged these back together, and now I'm in here at the junction box, right? Which there's connectors there too, and I didn't really draw that accurately. So we got a connector right there. All right. So the innards of those junction boxes are laminated, and if they get a little wet, we've already talked about that. They get to where they're not working, and all that. And so what it took to fix it was this, one of these. That may have been the one. May have been the very one that I did. Now the gem module rides piggyback on here, and obviously whenever you pull that off, you got fuses and everything down in there, and all that. But this little rascal here is a real handy little thing. You notice you got fuses and relays in there and all. That's the fuse panel underneath the truck. I'm gonna lay that right there. Okay, so now let's talk about these questions here. The ABS module on this vehicle communicates using ISO protocol through the DCL and can share the ISO network with 3 other modules. That's a simple answer I can give you right there. Communication problem with a particular module can be a result of what?
Both or any of the above.
Yep, any of the above. Referring to the schematic provided, technician A said a bad connection at connector C10 or 45 could cause the speed signal to be intermittent. You don't have a schematic provided, but I was talking about this, and so technician B says a bad connection at C222 might cause the speedometer not to work. And basically, that's just teaching you to look at wiring schematics. That's going to be A. Why is it a good idea to set up a test light on a circuit being tested? I talked about that earlier. If you've got a short or if you've got an open and you've got a test light monitoring a circuit, if you've got a short, your test light will be burning if it's a short in the ground and you got to hook the power. And when you're fooling around moving your wire harnesses and all and you see it wink and starting to go out, then you can go right to the problem. But if you're saying, I think I'll jerk on this harness a little bit, oh, my problem is gone, without even knowing when it went away, then you got a mess. All right, that's what I'm getting at there. You need something to let you know when the problem went away so you'll be able to vector yourself in on your problem.
So it would be?
Yeah, number 4 is number 4 is actually A. Manipulating harnesses and connectors may cause it to temporarily evaporate. Differential speed sensor circuit is hardwired to what? I drew that on the board a minute ago.
Junction box.
HCU. The speed sensor actually sends its signal to the hydraulic control unit. Technician A says if an electronic module has power and ground on the right pins but won't communicate with a scan tool, the module must be bad. Technician B says when a circuit in question is being checked for an open, each connector on the circuit must be located and the connector pin in question must be examined. That's actually B. You can actually have a non-communicative module because the wire going to the DCL or the wire that's feeding the bus is cut or chewed in two and all that. One time this old man brought a truck in there for us to look at, and he looked under the dash and he saw his data communication link where you plug the scan tool in, and he didn't know what that was for, didn't see anything that plugged into it, so he just cut the wires with a pair of side cutters. He just figured it didn't need to be there. And all that. Technician A says all ABS wheel speed sensors generate AC voltage that increases in amplitude as well as wheel speed increases. True. Technician B says, well, not really, because Dodges have got a sensor that puts out a digital signal. They're not AC voltage. Technician B says most wheel speed sensors are Hall effect units. Who's correct about that? Now, these guys are, neither one of them guys are correct because all of them are not AC voltage, but most of them are not Hall effect units. So neither one of those guys is right. Technician A says all ABS systems communicate over a serial bus through the DLC. Technician B says rear anti-lock brake system codes must be read as flash-out codes using the ABS lamp. He is right because, like for instance, on the Ranger, you got a rear anti-lock brake system. It don't talk to a scan tool. You got to flash out codes and look at them.
So you got that's going to be technician B.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, technician. Yeah, technician B. Technician A says most pickup trucks with four-wheel ABS use 4 separate wheel speed sensors. Technician B says some GM trucks use the transmission output shaft sensor to determine rear wheel speed.
Both.
Well, some GM trucks use the transmission output to, but the newer vehicles, typically though, pickup trucks don't usually have 4 separate wheel speed sensors. You know what I mean? They'll be looking at the axle and see if it's moving in the back on a rear wheel drive pickup. Things are changing all the time though. Technician A says all ABS problems can be effectively diagnosed with a scan tool. That's wrong. Technician B says all ABS problems can be effectively diagnosed without a scan tool. That's wrong. All right. Now then.
What was 9?
That would be, okay. Okay.